All right. So what got you interested in the whole real estate investing side of the business?
Well, it's just trying to get financial freedom, trying to get out of the 9-to-5 life that I was living where, I was living basically paycheck to paycheck.
Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Mastery Show. I'm Joe McCall. Hope you're doing awesome today. It's a beautiful day, I'm sure, wherever you are. Today, we're going to be talking about real estate licensing. Okay, now, do you need a real estate license to do deals? No, but it certainly does help. All right, I had a real estate license for years and years. Just about a year ago, I let mine expire. Why? I don't have a good reason. We'll talk to David, my guest, about that today. I just got lazy and I hated taking those continuing education classes. Okay, that's why I basically stopped mine. But it's nice to have. And I was just talking to a client yesterday about she's she really likes the idea of finding deals from other realtors. And I was telling her, I said, man, you're a realtor yourself. That makes it awesome because it's just a lot easier when you can talk to realtors who are already realtors. If you're a realtor, right? It helps get your foot in the door. It helps sometimes with credibility. You may not think so, but it helps many, many times with your credibility, whether you're talking to sellers or buyers or other realtors and you're trying to look for deals. So we're going to talk with a friend of mine today, David Ounanian. I think I got that right, but we'll find out in just a second. David O, we'll just call him David O. He is an investor, a realtor, and a friend here in the St. Louis market. We've known each other for a long, long time. And so we were at a workshop the other day and I said, hey, David, would you like to be on my show? Let's talk about this. How can realtors make money doing investing? How can realtors do deals? And how can investors work with realtors? And should investors get their license or not? There's a lot of rules going on and laws that are being passed where you can't wholesale deals anymore unless you have a license. So there's different ways around that. Number one, just go ahead and get your license. It's not a big deal. Number two, just buy the property and work with realtors who can then help you buy and sell your deals. So for some reason, and for many years, there's been this animosity between realtors and investors and a lot of misunderstanding and all that. But I love working with realtors, and I think it's a great way to get started in the business. It's a great way to make a lot of money, either by becoming a realtor or working with realtors, because you should seriously consider both. All right. We're going to talk about that on today's podcast. But first, this podcast is brought to you by joemccall.com/Saturday. Now, what are you talking about? Every Saturday, I do a class, as of right now, as I'm recording this, where we go live into a brand new market. And sometimes it's live, sometimes it's recorded because I can't do it live. But we'll go into a brand new market and we will pull a list of vacant land. We'll pick a market. And a lot of times I'll let you pick the markets. We'll pull a list of vacant landowners. We'll skip trace the list. We'll cold call the list. We'll send up a direct mail campaign to that list. I'll set up everything inside of FreedomSoft so you can see me do the stuff. You can watch me go in and set up a new market. People ask me all the time, Joe, do you still do deals today? And the answer is yes. In fact, we just got a deal under contract yesterday as I'm recording this, where we have the potential of making $100,000 net profit on this deal, which is awesome. I'm excited about it. Do I have my real estate license? No, but we are working with realtors on this deal. All right. So yeah, not bad. Better than a poke in the eye with a stick. So I'm going to show you how we do all of that in this $7 workshop I do on Saturdays, joemccall.com/Saturday. It's just $7. If you don't like it, watch it anyway. I'll refund your money. But check that out, joemccall.com/Saturday. Cool. All right. Let's bring David O on. David, how are you, my man?
I'm doing great, Joe. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. I'm glad you're here. Man, we've known each other for years and years. I think I first met you probably at one of the local real estate clubs in St. Louis, I'm guessing. What were some of the real estate clubs, or RIAs, as I call them, that you used to go to?
Oh my gosh. I went to all of them when I just started out. So I came from just like a background you had. I was an engineer in a 9-to-5 corporate job for 12 years. And one of my very, very first mentors gave me a really good piece of advice. He said, go to all of the local RIAs, go to all of the meetup events, and try to meet 1,000 people that first year that you're in real estate. And I don't think I met 1,000, but I probably got to 500, and that really propelled my career to get on a good starting path.
So when was that? When did you start going to the local RIAs?
That was 2017, 2018. It's
Okay.
about 7, 8 years ago.
Nice. All right. And you're also a really good golfer. Do you still golf a lot? Do you get to swing
I'm
sticks
not a
much?
really good golf. I have a 20 handicap, so it depends on who
Well,
you're.
you were okay. Well, you were way better than I was.
I was having a good day when you had me out at the club. I know that. But so recently I built a putting green in my backyard. So I kind of scratched the itch here
Oh,
and play a couple times a year for real. But
well, we should play again sometime soon.
let's do it.
All right. So you're in St. Louis. How long have you been a realtor?
So I got licensed 11 years ago. And so the whole background on why I got licensed is when I went to buy my first house, my realtor sucked. Like a lot of realtors out there, a lot of them are just carrying this piece of paper around and they have no idea what they're doing. So I was really frustrated with the process and I didn't want any of my family or friends to have that same experience. So I just got licensed on the side. I was selling like 2 or 3 houses to friends and family every year on the side of my corporate job. Never in a million years thought I was going to be a full-time real estate agent or full-time investor. That kind of came later when I got burned out at my corporate job. Started Googling, like, how do I get out of here? How do I retire? And real estate just kept coming up and up and up and over again. And like so many of us read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then, that kind of lit the fire to start investing. And then it kind of came full circle with having my license and how valuable that has been for my career since then.
Awesome. And you got your license first before you kind of got into the investor world of things.
That's right. Yep.
Who did you hang your license with when you first got started?
It was a small, like family-owned place. I think it's called Schneider Real Estate in St. Charles. Great people there. They kind of taught me the contracts and the lay of the land when I first got started. I've kind of bounced around since then. I went to the flat fee places where I could keep 100% of my commission. I went to the big guys like Keller Williams, and now we're at eXp Realty, and we've been very happy there for the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, people who are at eXp love eXp. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody complain or say anything bad about eXp.
Yeah, it's a good place to work for sure.
Awesome. All right, so what got you interested in the whole real estate investing side of the business?
Well, it's just trying to get financial freedom, trying to get out of the 9 to 5 life that I was living where, I was living basically paycheck to paycheck. I had a good paying job, but I went out and bought all these nicer things like a bigger house and new vehicles and a lake house and a boat. And so I was making 6 figures in my corporate job, but the second that paycheck came in, it was the very next day. It's made spent making all these payments on stuff that I had financed. And, it just, I never saw an end to it. I was like, I do not want to be in this job for another 30, 40 years and retiring. One of my coworkers were, who were absolutely miserable. And I think you had that story about the cupcakes or something with the upside down
I forgot about that.
frowns. And, yeah, I so related with that because that's what was happening at my job is people with 30, 40 years of service were just retiring, after their entire life, it kind of passed them by. And I didn't want to be one of those guys.
And I used to show that picture all the time in my webinars. It was my last day of work at my corporate job in 2009. And the secretary, admin assistant lady at the job site made a dozen cupcakes. And all of the cupcakes except one had frowning, sad faces, except one cupcake had a smiley face, and guess which one was me? Yeah, man, I burnt the ships and cut the sail, and it was an amazing, crazy ride. 2009. All right, so you were interested, but like you had been doing realtor stuff. Why did you think then that doing investor stuff might give you more chance for freedom? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's all about the passive income opportunity with investing, right? So I knew as a realtor, I had to work to make a commission and I had all these bills to pay. So if I wasn't getting paid every 2 weeks, I was going to be in trouble. And so the idea of owning a rental property where the rent's coming in every month, I'm making money every month for the foreseeable future. That's what attracted me to this idea that, I could build up a rental portfolio, get out of my job, pay off debt and survive on passive income.
So did you do that? Were you able to figure that out?
Yeah, so I didn't have a ton of money getting started, so I was really attracted to this thing called the Burr method, where you buy, you rehab, you rent, you refinance and repeat. So you're basically refinancing all of your rehab money and your down payment out of the rental and taking it, going to do a new rental. And so, after 2 years of building up my portfolio to about 10 units, I left my corporate job to do investing full time. And then another 2 years after that, we got up to 20 rentals, and my wife let her corporate job, and she's in the business with me now of investing.
So you were able to make enough cash flow from just 10 rentals to make enough income to replace your old job?
Not replace the old job. So we mix some flips in there to pay off big debt, to lower our monthly expenses. And then the rentals, what they do is, if I don't make any money this month, my rentals are going to make my mortgage payment and put food on the table. So I can survive knowing I don't have to go out and do a deal this month to survive. The rentals kind of give us that security.
So the cash flow that you get, the net cash flow that you get from your rental properties that you have now, pay just the bare essentials, which is awesome.
Right. Yep.
The most important essentials, your mortgage payment and food.
Yep.
Right. Not bad at all.
It's not bad.
And so then the extra money that you make could be from flips. Do you wholesale deals too?
Not many. So we'll talk about here in a little bit, kind of our model that we're using on the agent side that is kind of like wholesaling, but it's just getting paid a bigger commission. We can dive into that a little bit later too.
Let's talk about this idea of living off the cash flow from your rental properties. I've been interested by this. At one time I owned 13, 14, 15 properties that I was either bought with bank financing or seller financing or subject twos, where I took over the mortgages, and I was cash flowing a couple $100 a month. But that always had a way to just disappear, right? With vacancies and repairs and maintenance. And I don't want to go into all of that, but it was discouraging. It was hard. It was like, I was so discouraged because I believed, the key to getting out of the rat race is to just buy assets that produce cash flow. And I thought the numbers I was doing it the way I was supposed to be doing it. The problem was I wasn't getting enough cash flow, and I wasn't saving enough money for those future expenses that were coming up. So are you saying, just so I'm clear, that you're getting enough real net passive income cash flow from your rental properties after property management, vacancies, maintenance, repairs, taxes, insurance, all of that stuff? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And it wasn't some easy path, right? I had to learn a lot of what you just mentioned along this road. So I remember like a couple years into doing this, I didn't have my accounting down. I didn't have QuickBooks set up the way it was supposed to set up. And the end of the year came, and all of a sudden I've got $20,000 worth of real estate taxes that are due, and I don't have $20,000 in my accounts. And it was a really frightening experience. It's like, oh my gosh, we got to figure this out. So we put in a system where that rent comes in, and then if you've ever read the book Profit First, that money's going in a bunch of different directions to your maintenance, your CapEx, your real estate taxes, before I see any type of profit on it. And so you would think, rental property is going to have a ton of cash flow is the idea when you buy these things. And the reality is it's pretty small. So we generally will see about $100 to $300 profit per door. So on the 20 units, I'm probably at about $5,000 or so a month. And so that kind of takes care of some of our bare necessities. It's not a huge profit margin, but it gets the job done. And it's a nice, secure asset that's appreciating, and we've got equity in there. And we started paying some off with the property.
Well, that's awesome because it's not much now, but it's growing, right? And if you look at all the unseen benefits of it, like depreciation and tax write-offs and appreciation, and you're going to have these properties free and clear probably in 15, 20 years, right? That's when it really starts growing, and you can use that equity, leverage it, and buy other properties, bigger properties.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a longer game. It's a long play for sure.
Absolutely.
Cool. So for the extra money, you're doing some fix and flip maybe?
We
Rehabbing?
do one or two fix and flips a year, which is easy for me because my wife just fixes them up and I just buy them and sell them. And then majority of my active income today comes from real estate commissions, from helping other investors invest in real estate.
Awesome.
So the last year we sold 113 investment properties where I was the agent and earned a commission on those deals. Many of those are people doing fix and flips or rentals, or short-term rentals or midterm rentals, any number of those.
So let's talk about that. I love
Yeah.
this strategy. I have interviewed people before who do it. It's a great way to do the wholesaling thing, but as a realtor, which in a lot of ways it's easier. And it's I don't want to say wholesaling is illegal, but in some ways doing it this way is more legal. It's more safe. You're more within the comforts and the confines that the real estate commission and that wants you to be in. Don't get me started with that, right? Because whatever. Sometimes I complain about the real estate commission and the National Association of Realtors. It acts more like a cartel and a monopoly, but whatever. Okay, it is what it is. You could argue and fight that and you'll never win. So sometimes you just got to learn to accept it and take it as it is. And that's why I did have my license for so long. And the only reason I let it expire was because I just got lazy. And don't you get tired of those classes as well, David? I mean, be honest.
I don't know how much I can say on a recording, but I do the
Okay.
online classes and I may not be looking at the screen while they're going on.
But
Yeah, I hear you.
they test you and they quiz you to make
Yeah,
sure you know what.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you taken the ethics class?
a lot of times. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's important. Obviously, I'm not saying it's not important. Okay. So what is this then? What are you doing now for more active income at working as a realtor, doing the wholesaling's part of the business as a realtor? What is that? How does that work?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we call ourselves Cash Flow Nation. We're basically real estate investment advisors. So the way we market ourselves to people is kind of think of your financial advisor, your traditional financial advisors helping you build wealth and prepare for retirement, and marry that with a realtor who knows how to transact real estate. And so we're kind of the hybrid of those two professions. And we help people as their agent buy profitable real estate deals and investments to increase their net worth and their wealth and their cash flow.
Nice. I love that term. Real estate advisor, real estate
Real
investment
estate
advisor.
investment advisor.
I love that. You don't have to have any fancy certification or licensing to do that, except just a real estate license.
Just have to have a real estate license. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now, how do you make your money though? What does that mean?
Sure. Yeah. So as far as like how we do deals is, we help people do like just what I said, fix and flips, the Burr method, anything they want. So
You
a
go and
lot
find
of
them deals.
So a lot of our buyers will buy them right off the MLS. So we're blessed to be in a market where investors buy stuff off the MLS all the time. So probably 80% of our deals are just MLS deals.
Okay.
But what gets exciting is the off-market stuff. So about 20% of our deals come from off-market sources. And so what I like about those is we have an opportunity to make a much higher commission on those. Because on the MLS, it's simply stated, this is how much you're getting paid. It's usually 3%, 2.7%, 2.5%, whatever it says on there. And that could be changing with the new rules, of course, that are coming out this summer. But historically, there's not a huge opportunity to make a wholesale fee type like commission on an MLS deal versus off market. We can mark those up as much as the margin would allow us to, and it still be a good deal for our client. So a lot of times we'll work with other wholesalers, other agents, and it especially works well when you have a wholesaler. Let's say, Joe, you're a wholesaler and you have a deal for and I'm giving actual numbers from a deal that we just did. Let's say you've got a deal and you said, hey, I want $40,000 for this house. The first question I'm going to ask you is, hey, can I put my commission on top of that price? And you're going to say, yes, I would love you to put the commission on top of the price because I don't want to give you a cut of what I'm making on my 40. And I'll say, great. And so I'll go back and I'll look at the numbers for this $40,000 house and I'll see, hey, how much room is there in there for it still to be a good deal for my buyer client? But for me to make a decent commission on this deal. And so for this exact example, it might be $10,000. I might be able to make a 20% commission on this deal. So I send you an agreement, Joe, that says, hey, I'm going to sell your house for 50 and you're going to pay me a $10,000 commission to do that. And you're happy to sign that because you're getting your 40 that you wanted. And then you're like, oh, he's going to figure out a way to sell it for 50. And so then I go back to my clients and I advertise the property as a $50,000 deal. Here are the numbers on it. Here's the rehab estimate. Here's the rent estimate. This is what the ARV looks like. On this particular deal, it was like 120 ARV with a 30 grand rehab. So they're still getting a decent margin at 50. It's still a deal for them. It's a great deal for me as the agent. It's a great deal for you as a wholesaler. And we get the deal done and we make a $10,000 commission or 20% commission, which is way, way higher than any normal real estate agents making on an MLS deal. And because we're investors, because we're licensed, we know how to orchestrate all the paperwork and analysis to get this done.
I love that. And so that wholesaler might have gotten that property under contract for $30,000, right?
Yep.
So they got it under contract for 30. They contact you and say, hey, I want to sell this thing for 40.
Yep.
And that's still a really good deal. You find at 50, it'll be still a good deal for your end buyer.
Right.
And by the way, these buyers that are buying these things to fix them up and flip them, they know what's going on, right? They know there's middlemen involved, a wholesaler, a realtor, but they don't care because they're getting a deal on the minimum, on the numbers that they want, right? So that wholesaler, just simple round numbers here, will make 10 grand. You'll make 10 grand commissions. And then the seller will make a lot of money after they rehab it and fix it up and rent it out or whatever. They're going to hold it for 10, 20, 30 years. They're going to fix it and flip it and make 30 grand net. So it's like everybody wins. And the seller also wins because they found somebody to buy their property that needed a lot of work. Nobody else was interested in buying it. Only an investor would buy that property. And the community wins because now this trash property is taken off the market. Somebody's going to get in there, fix it up, clean it up, fix the landscaping, bring the values of all the houses up around it, right? Everybody wins.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's win all the way around. And that's what I love about that scenario where you kind of alluded to this earlier. When you are just the wholesaler, not all the time do all of those interests align, right? And I give people the example of the first investment deal that I did. So I was dumb enough to think I knew enough because I had my real estate license and I was doing my first investment deal and I didn't need another agent to help me. So I did my first deal and I bought a property from a wholesaler. Well, little did I know that the wholesaler had wholesaled or had been wholesaled that property from another wholesaler. And when I got into it after I closed, there's all these problems. I lost all this money on my first deal. And I was really upset and I felt like the wholesaler screwed me over. And, that's kind of the bad rap that sometimes wholesalers can get because they're really only interested in making that sale and that wholesale fee versus us as the agent. If I'm going to sell that for $50,000, I got to do my due diligence to make sure it's still a good deal for them because I'm representing them as an agent and it's my butt on the line. I should be doing all my due diligence to make sure that is still a good deal. If it's not a good deal at 50, I need to figure out how to get them a better price on that property. And that might include me lowering my commission. So we've gone into these before where inspection reveals, hey, the roof's bad. There's another big expense that nobody was expecting to have on something. And I will lower the commission and I'll ask the wholesaler to lower their wholesale fee to get the deal done and still make it a good deal for everybody.
I love this. It's a win-win. And we'll talk about due diligence in a second here. I want to know what the things you look at. But my question also then is like other realtors listening to this, they're going to say, that's not fair. I make 6% commissions and you're making 20% commissions. Is there some kind of law that says there's a limit on a certain amount of commissions you can make as a realtor? Are there rules against this?
No. I mean, that's what this lawsuit was all about is realtors were saying that, the court was saying that realtors were saying that commissions weren't negotiable. Commissions have always and always will be negotiable. So if I can negotiate a 20% commission, that's props to me, right? The seller's willing to pay me that. I didn't force him to pay me a 20% commission. I didn't say you have to pay me a 20% commission. That's the only way you're going to sell your house, right? This is a negotiable thing. And so a lot of people are getting negotiated in the other direction where their commissions are getting slashed and beat up and they're competing with flat fee brokers and stuff like that, which is where we found this niche of being licensed and working with investors where we are not like some readily available commodity. We're actually pretty rare to find agents that are focused on working with investors that are competent in investing. And so we can negotiate our commissions the other way to be higher than most other realtors.
Yeah. And one of the cool things too, I know guys who do this where they will negotiate with the end buyers up front and will say, my commissions are a minimum of this. And if you want me to help you, I'm going to make at least $1,000, $2,000 on representing you and whatever commission I can get from any of the other deals, right? So you can negotiate a commission from the person bringing you the deal, and you can negotiate an extra commission from the buyer that you're representing. Is that right?
You sure can. Yeah, we've been plenty of times made commissions on both sides of the deal, which is awesome. So you can market yourself to the buyers that, hey, anything that I help you buy, this is the commission that you're going to have to pay. And then you can do it the other way. I prefer to have the seller try to pay for all of my commission because then the buyer can very easily finance that into the purchase of the house, right? So when the house is 50 and there's $10,000 of commission, they're getting a loan on the 50 versus if the buyer had to bring commission to the table. Let's say they were buying it for 40, but paying us a $10,000 commission. The lender may not loan against that $10,000 in commission. That's a lot of extra cash that they would have to bring. So that's why I prefer to get it from the seller and bake it into the price. But you can definitely get fees from the buyer as well.
All right, cool. How do you find these buyers?
They're online watching this video right now. They're all over the place looking for so they're Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Bigger Pockets is a huge source for us of just people looking for investment deals and investment knowledge and trying to get in front of an agent that can help them navigate a market and stuff like that, as well as the in-person stuff. So we mentioned you go to meetup.com, look for different RIAs, Real Estate Investors Associations to go to and just hand out your business cards.
I remember it was probably 10 years ago, there was an investor, this was 2014 maybe, there was an investor who had these meetups in about 5 different cities in California from St. Louis. So every month he'd go travel to 5 different meetups in LA, San Francisco, San Diego, et cetera, and teaching how to invest in turnkey real estate out of state. And it was just educational. He would teach how to do this, what to look for, what to watch out for, common mistakes. Because you can't buy cash flow in California. If you're an investor and you want to buy rental real estate, you can't buy anything that cash flows. So this guy would teach how to do it, how to pick the markets, how to pick the realtors, how to pick the properties, how to pick the property management, and blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, by the way, if you're interested, we can do all of this for you. St. Louis is a great market. We've got a lot of properties here, and they would just pass out brochures. And every month they would get business. They would get in business from investors in California. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I didn't know you could do this and you can help me. And they would sell properties to these people right off the MLS.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's a great strategy.
There's a lot of opportunity there. And as a realtor, you're just educating the market, sounds like, and you're telling them, hey, this is what you need to watch out for. This is what you need to be aware of. And if St. Louis is a good market, we can help you find these deals.
And we focus on long-term relationships with our buyers. So that's one of the things that differentiates us from wholesalers is if you're not going to make money as a client of mine on this deal, I don't want you to do it because I want to be involved with, on 20 deals with you over the next 10 years versus doing this one deal where you got burned and now you never want to do it again, right? So I'm interested in the repeat business of this. And so we have a ton of clients that they do 10, 15, 20 deals a year with us. And those are the type of relationships that I love to build up to.
Nice. And are these out-of-state investors usually?
There's a lot of out-of-state investors. Yeah. So our primary kind of avatar is an out-of-state investor or somebody local that's kind of newer and needs some hand holding on how to invest and how to get going.
Question I have is sometimes, are you concerned with liability when it comes to if you're estimating the value of a property, the rents, what it could rent for, the amount of the rehab, you're recommending contractors or property managers. There's got to be times when the amount of rehab was underestimated, or you recommended some property managers that didn't work out, that were bad. You might have said, hey, the rents were 800 to 900, and they thought, oh, great, I could rent it for 900, but then they couldn't. And so they only could rent it for 800, and that kind of screws up all of their ratios, financial ratios and stuff like that, right? So like, how do you cover your butt when it comes to like that kind of stuff?
That's a great question. So the easy one with the rents is just pulling comps. And so we use the MLS to pull rent comps, and thankfully there's still enough out there to accurately assess this. But I give them 3 comps and I say, hey, I think this will rent for $900. Here are the 3 comps, and they see the data on it. Here's one for $950. Here's one for $850. Here's one for $875. That's why I said $900. So I try to use that as much as possible. And then when it comes to recommendations, I always try to give them multiple recommendations. Very rarely I'm going to say, use Joe. Joe is your guy that you have to use for this, for the contracting and the property management. Because Joe, if you let me down, you're going to make me look really bad. But if I say, hey, there's Joe, Tom, and Bill, these guys are great property managers. Now you go interview them and you pick which one you think is best. And so that will kind of cover my butt, as if somebody lets them down, they were involved in the process of picking them. We gave them some good options to choose from, though.
What do you do about rehabs and estimating what work needs to be done, how much it's going to cost and all that?
Yeah, that's been a tricky one. So I've got what I call a rehab estimator. We tell people this is a ballpark estimate of what you can expect to pay for certain things that go on in a house. It's a spreadsheet of like 200 different line items of everything you can fix inside and outside the house, and generally a ballpark of what it would cost to do that. So we help them analyze that. That's kind of the first step to figuring out what a rehab estimate would look like. Then from there, we encourage them to get multiple bids. And then we compare those bids from actual contractors to the one that we had to see, okay, this one kind of lines up with what we were expecting. Let's go for it. But there's always surprises. So even in the bid that we give them, we automatically have a 10% contingency on that. And sometimes we want to increase that if this is a fire damage or distress, or even more distressed property. We may put 15, 20% contingency on there, because there's going to be things that come up that we can't see or estimate right now.
Let's talk about certain areas of town. You're not allowed to redline, which means you can't steer buyers away from certain areas.
Yeah.
But let's be honest though. There are areas where you do not want to be in, right? You're just asking for trouble. It's going to be, number one, hard to find a contractor that will even do any rehabs there, right? Number two, the rents, the numbers may look good on spreadsheets. And this is what bothers me sometimes, especially in St. Louis. We all know people back from, the early 2000s that bought these properties for $60,000 that are still not even worth today $30,000.
Yeah.
Like there's neighborhoods where there's a ton of vacancies, there's a ton of boarded up properties, and you look at the numbers and you might think, oh man, this is a great deal. The numbers work out, but it's just not a good neighborhood, right? Yeah. You're not going to find good tenants there. Nobody wants to live there. The schools are bad and it's just whatever. Okay. But like, okay, what are there, as a realtor with your ethics, and you're not allowed to steer people from, but we're talking, you're dealing with investors. So this is maybe different than retail owner occupant buyers, but how do you do that? What, you understand?
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic question. You know how to ask all the good questions here. So this is something I've dealt with for years, right? Every investor that comes to me wants to know, where's the good place to invest? Where do I want to stay away from? And to the point where like they had gotten videos from other realtors in other markets that said, oh, they circled something on a map and they said, this is the place to invest. And this is where you do. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't think you can do that. And so I went to my broker and I said, hey, what do you think if I put together this video that talked about different areas. He said, absolutely not. You cannot do that. That is steering. That is redlining. We cannot classify different areas and steer people into different areas. So I found a very clever way to get around all of that and still get the same exact result. And so what we focus on is the price point. Okay. And so I can go into any market today and I can tell you what class of neighborhood a certain house is in based on the price points in that metropolitan area. So let's take a look at St. Louis, for example. The median price point in St. Louis, I think last time I checked, is like, let's say $220,000 for a single family home. What I do is I say anything above that median price point is an A-class area. That's A-class real estate. You're going to have the lowest amount of cash flow and you're going to have, the highest amount of appreciation per se, because this is A-class. This is where, the price of the home has gone up, but the rents don't necessarily go up that fast. And so you've got lower cash flow. Then I break down the 0 to the median into thirds. So 2/3 of the median up to the median price point. I don't have my calculator on me right now, but let me figure this out real quick. 220 divided by 3, about $70,000. So let's just say 150,000 to 220 is going to be what I call B class real estate. So this is where you're going to be in still a pretty good area, but you're going to have better cash flow than your A class real estate. And then the third below that, from 150 down to 75, is generally your C class real estate. This is going to be a little bit worse of an area, worse of a neighborhood, a little bit more questionable tenants. This is where I like to say, hey, you may want to start thinking about Section 8 to where you can get some more guaranteed rent, insurance, stuff like that. But you're going to have higher cash flow in that price point. And then that bottom
more risk.
third, the bottom third under 75,000, this is D class, pretty close to war zone, no-fly area. So when you're talking about people buying a house for 60, I instantly go to my price points and I say, this is a highly questionable area that's going to be very rough. There's, we tell people to pull up spot crime. I think it's spotcrime.com and put in that address. And in a price point like that, you're going to see a ton of like gunshot markers. And so you're going to be scared out of that area when you look at the crime and stuff. And so that's generally how we get around telling people what area to look in. And we just classify it just based on the price and looking at crime reports and stuff like that too.
I think a good way to look at it too would be just numbers, because if you were to buy a property there, just looking at the numbers, honestly, you're going to have rehab's costs going to be way higher than you realize. And then your vacancies are going to be much higher than you realize. So if you factor all these in, and your rents are going to be a lot lower than you think, it's going to take you a lot longer to find tenants. So if you look at the numbers, they just don't make sense. Forget about your biases or what you feel comfortable with, quote unquote. If you just look at the numbers, it won't work. And when you try to resell that property, you can't give it away. You can't even give it away. I remember one time I was doing some marketing and a seller called me and he said, I want to sell this deal. And I think just looking at the numbers real quickly, we said we could offer him 10 grand or something like that. And then I said, after I looked at it, I said, listen, this isn't going to work. I'm not interested. You'd have to pay me to buy your house. How much would you pay me to buy your house? And he said, I'll pay you $1,000 to buy this property. And I thought, oh, shoot, what did I just say? And so I said, well, let me look into it. Okay. And so I actually sent him an option. I forget how I did this. I don't remember, but I just started getting on the phone and calling every landlord I could find in that area. And I just said, hey, for $1,000, I will give you this property. Okay. And nobody said they wanted it. Nobody even wanted the property for $1,000. So anyway, that's just something you got to navigate gingerly. And it's just be careful because you don't want to discriminate.
Yeah, there's definitely those areas though, and especially our city is where the amount of rehab it's going to cost to fix up that house, the house will never be worth the money that you have to put into it. And so that's where a lot of these neighborhoods that are distressed are just vacant house after vacant house because it needs 50 grand in repairs and the ARV is 25, right? And so it doesn't make sense for anybody to do anything with it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's talk about you estimate your repairs. People get tripped up on this a lot. And sometimes in some of these neighborhoods, there really is no ARV. Is there after repair value? Because these are properties they're not selling to retail buyers. Only landlords are buying these properties in some of these areas, right? So
In the cheaper
when you're
areas.
looking at, say again,
In the lower class areas, yeah.
right, the
If you're
Class C
looking,
neighborhoods,
yeah.
maybe.
Generally, people start getting a mortgage for a house when it's about 100,000 or higher. A lot of the lenders these days, they say, hey, the price has to be 100 or more to get a mortgage on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then how do you evaluate these deals? How do you look at the numbers? Is it cash flow? Is it net operating income, cash on cash return, ROI, rent yields, things like that? How do you look at those?
Yeah, I mean, we look at all of them. We take all of them into account. Probably cash flow is the number one reason why somebody wants to buy a rental. So that's got to be positive. And depending on the class of area that they're in, it requires more cash flow if you're in like a C class versus an A class property, right? And so I want to see a couple $100 on my C class rental in cash flow versus A class.
So how do you for the repairs? You have your own repair sheet, but do you get contractors to bid it as well?
Yeah. Yeah, we partnered with one of our property managers. They have construction teams inside of their company. And so one of the cool things that they do is instead of us hiring a third party home inspector, we just have their construction manager inspect the property and they give us a bid at the same time they do the inspection. And so they're happy because now they're getting paid to go out and do these bids versus before they were coming in after the inspector and expected to give the client a free bid. Well, now we kind of just contract them to inspect it and bid it all in once. And so it's one trip to the property. The client has, oh, these are the repairs that are needed. This is what we're going to need to fix up to get to your occupancy and get it rent ready. And here's the bid for it. So
yeah, this is so good because this reminds me of there's some pretty dramatic, horrible stories that have come from other markets. Indianapolis is one of them specifically. Maybe you're familiar with this, but if you've been on Bigger Pockets at all, just do a search for Indianapolis, and I won't mention names, but do you know what I'm talking about, David?
I don't know where you're going yet.
All right. Well, this was a couple years ago. It's probably quieted down since then, but there were literally hundreds and hundreds of investors that lost millions of dollars buying turnkey rental properties from a certain famous guy.
Okay.
And he was selling everything through a property management company that was complete fraud. It was like they were sending rehab estimates and rent rolls and pictures of properties that weren't even being fixed up yet, weren't even rented yet, and showing positive. It was a Ponzi scheme is what this thing was.
Wow.
And it just really, really got bad where a lot of investors lost a ton of money. And unfortunately, this happens in some markets where I don't know how it starts. It could just be that these property management companies get completely overwhelmed and they're dealing with the trashiest, worst neighborhoods. And they're like, and then they get into a hole and they're trying to dig themselves out by getting new investor money to pay off old investor money. And immediately, all of a sudden, before they know it, they have a Ponzi scheme. And this happens a lot, unfortunately. So one of the great things about what you're doing is you're now the boots on the ground person for the investor who wants to get into St. Louis. And you have a fiduciary responsibility to be honest and tell the truth and give the best advice that you can. Yeah. But like what was going on here is that, again, these buyers from California were buying these rental properties in Indianapolis, and they were being promised that these properties were worth this, the rehab was worth this, and it would rent for this. And so they would send all their money to this guy who would buy the property, fix it up, apparently, and get it rented. And then, like, they were starting to get rents. They were getting reports every month of, everything's going great. And they show up, they finally fly to Indianapolis, and the house is completely boarded up and trashed. It's never been rehabbed, never been rented. And this is all a scam.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That is nuts. I can see how that can happen though. And I think that's the problem with the turnkey model is you're placing all of your trust into one person or one company to be your agent, your property manager, your contractor. And it's like this person's wearing all these hats, and those are all very different jobs that require a lot of attention and skills to do each one individually. And so that's where our value proposition comes in. Instead of doing turnkey, hire us to be your agent. We're gonna give you the best property management options. We're going to give you the best contractor options through our referral network, and we're just going to be the best agent that we can possibly be for you. And so that's how we compete against some of these other people that are like the all-in-one service. You're going to get mediocre across the board at best in that scenario, and especially if they get overwhelmed or too busy, I can definitely see how their money gets behind, and then all of a sudden you got a boarded up property when it was supposed to be rehabbed and rented out months ago.
If you know you do some podcasting and some content marketing yourself, you should do a little research on this, because you can talk for months about what's happened here.
Okay. Yeah.
It reminds me too, back in 2012, I had been doing lease options and started doing more traditional house wholesaling with cash deals. And I hired an acquisitions guy, and we were doing a lot of deals, doing well. But I talked to a guy who's like, Joe, you should find the buyers first. And it's always easier to sell buyers what they want rather than what you have. And that is some of the best advice I've ever gotten. And I'll tell you who it was, Kent Clothier. Kent Clothier has been teaching and doing this for a long, long time. He says, Joe, it's always easier to sell buyers what they want rather than what you have. So go find what the buyers want and bring it to them.
Yeah.
The tricky part with that is, that's brokering. You need a license to do that. If you go find a property for somebody else, you need to get a license to do it. Okay, fine. Go get a license. But what happened was, I thought that's really smart. So we were doing a ton of seller marketing, trying to find these off-market deals. And we were doing 1 or 2 deals a month, maybe 3. And we changed it where we just started marketing for buyers. And we started simple. We found buyers who were out-of-state buyers buying in other hot markets for rentals, like Memphis, Indianapolis, Cleveland, Ohio, Lafayette, Louisiana, Mobile, Alabama, like all of these other markets, Oklahoma City. So we would go in and pull lists of who are the out-of-state investors that were buying in those states. And we started sending them letters, real simple letters that said, hey, and I copied all of this from Kent Clothier. He has a book called Reverse Wholesaling. You should go get it. We said, hey, we are the premier real estate investing company in St. Louis. We see that you've been buying properties in Oklahoma City. And if you're interested in buying some properties at cash flow in St. Louis, give us a call. We'd like to talk to you and tell you and show you what we have. That was it. And that phone number would go to Rick's cell phone number, and he would answer the calls. And so pretty soon, within a few months, we had 10 or 20 buyers that were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you guys answer your phones, number one. Because we answered the phones. You know how that's just sales 101, right? Hang on, my computer screen went blank here. Sales 101, that's one of the biggest frustrations and complaints that most people have with realtors is they just don't answer their stinking phone. Yeah. So if you want to triple your business, just answer the phones. All right. But anyway, so these buyers are like, I can't believe you guys answer your phones, and tell me what you've got. I'm looking for somebody. And so we stopped all of our seller marketing. And we started networking at all the local real estate clubs and different Facebook groups, meetups, and just words of mouth. And we started collecting. This is what else Kent told us to do. Start collecting the names and phone numbers and emails of everybody that does business in St. Louis. Property managers, realtors, investors, wholesalers, everybody we could. And we started emailing everybody once a week. And we pretended to be the new hedge fund in town that had $1 million burning a hole in our pocket. And we started sending out marketing to everybody. Instead of looking for sellers, we started looking for deals. And we started saying, hey, we've got $1 million. We need some properties. We need properties because we've got these buyers that we're looking for. We listed the zip codes. It has to rent for at least this, has to be at least a 2-3 bedroom, has to be whatever. Send us what you've got. We are looking for deals. We want your deals. And we started getting people out of the woodwork bringing us deals, incredible deals. And we started getting realtors that would bring us deals and say, hey, I don't even care about the commission. I just want to help my clients sell their property, right?
Nice.
We get wholesalers that say, I only got a week left on my 30 days or whatever. I don't care if I just make $1,000. Just please, I don't want to back out of this contract. And we started getting more deals than we could handle. And then we realized after doing a bunch of these deals, like, oh, this is great. And then our buyers were all tapped out. They're like, oh man, I don't have any more money, or this is great. But so then we started realizing we need to continually be marketing for buyers. And so we just started every month sending out marketing to get more buyers. And it was awesome. We were doing way more deals by just finding the buyer. I should have started this podcast with that story, because Rick and I only worked together. You might know Rick too, by the way.
Yeah.
Super good guy. We only worked together for about a year. And he was doing all the work, and we were splitting the profits 50-50. And he's like, Joe, I could do this on my own. I don't need you anymore. Thank you very much. We're still friends these days to this day. But so we parted as friends. I was like, I get it, Rick. And this has been years, over 10. He's still actively doing this. And that's all he does. He got his license, and he just finds the buyers. Now he presents himself as the guy with all the money, and everybody starts bringing him deals. It's an amazing, simple business, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing when you can leverage those referral sources and have other people bringing you the deals. That's awesome. Very
well. Yeah, you should. If you want later, I'll show you the letter we sent out and how we got those lists of buyers. Like, it's so awesome. Simple.
Cool.
Just got to make sure you have a phone number on there that somebody answers.
Yep.
I hope you guys listening to this picked up a gold nugget there. Whether you're an investor, you're a realtor, you're a landlord, whatever you do, if you just answer the phones and start talking to people and then follow up with people. We kept on sending emails saying, hey, we're looking for deals. Do you have anything? Every week, an email, a text, a phone call. We're looking for deals. Send us what you've got. And all of a sudden, we became known as the guy who, because word of mouth spreads so fast. David, he's got buyers. Send your deal to him. And he'll just add his commission onto whatever price you want. I know there's people listening to this podcast right now, David, are thinking, I've got a deal in St. Louis. I'm going to call David. How can people get a hold of you?
Let's do it. Yeah. So on Instagram or Facebook at Agent David O, send me a message is probably the quickest way. And we'll connect and send you my email address and my phone. And yeah, I'd love to do deals together. We started this podcast with, what are the advantages of getting a license as an investor? Yeah. I got about 6 of them. I just wanted to run through real quick, Joe.
Let's do it. Yes.
You tell me what you think here. So number one, this is probably the most obvious one to me, and maybe to you too, is access to the MLS.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I love it, because you can also get access to the county records behind the MLS as well to see who the buyers are, what they bought them for. And you get the contact information of the realtors, the buyer's agents and the seller's agents, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a powerful tool. So that's what the appraisers are going to use to value the property. So and the history. Yes.
The history, which is all, you can't get that anywhere else. See, like how many times has property sold and who bought when and all of that.
Yeah. And I notice MLSs today are very strict about who has access and who can log in. So we've been slapped on our hands many a times because a login showed up from a different IP address, and you got to go through this whole thing. So no longer can you get it from your agent anymore. Like, you literally need to be licensed to have access to MLS. That's really important. Number 2, obvious one, I think, is you're going to save money on commissions, right? You're not going to, if you're doing your own deals, you can list them and not pay yourself a commission, or buy them on the MLS and not pay a commission. Number 3, this is something that I've definitely experienced myself, is you're going to close more opportunities with sellers. So when I'm going on a seller appointment and I want to buy the house, first of all, I do want to buy the house as an investor, but that's going to come at a discounted price, right? A lot of times we go into these appointments and the seller wants more than you can offer. Well, as a licensed agent, I can put all of the options on the table for them. oh, you want that price? We can help you get that price, but here's what it's going to include. We're going to have to list it. We're going to have to show it. We're going to have an open house. We're going to have people going through here. We're going to get contracts that are contingent on financing. We're going to get contracts contingent on inspections. You're going to have to get So like I can put all the cards on the table. So that way I'm not sitting there beating them up over the price and as my only lever I can pull. I can be the agent on the deal and still get a commission and bring in some income on a property that may not be a fit for them to sell to a wholesaler. Number 4, this is a big one that I've experienced, is I'm leveraging the experience from the investors I'm working with. I'm helping an investor do the deal, and I'm not risking any of my own time or money doing that investment deal, but I'm there for the ride, right? And so where I've some new strategies to use, like I never saw myself as being an Airbnb owner or this new craze of midterm rentals where you're furnishing a rental and you're renting it by the month. I just saw so many of my clients doing that and making 2-3 times the money I was making on a similar property that I was like, I need to do that. I could do that really easily. I've seen how they did it and now I can do it. And so I'm leveraging the experience of my clients and then now putting it in play in my own business and having a lot more confidence of being able to do that. So it's number 4. Number 5, higher commissions. We talked about that at the beginning, how we made 20% on a commission deal. And number 6 is real estate professional status. So Joe, you know that if we're real professionals, according to the IRS, we can get a lot more savings on our taxes and depreciation and write-offs and stuff like that. And so being licensed helps just validate that you are a professional in the space, and you can put more hours towards those credentials.
Yeah, and it gives you credibility with the sellers.
Yep,
a lot of times,
absolutely.
more trust
For sure.
with them for the most part.
Yeah.
One of my realtor jokes though was when we were in Jackson, Wyoming on the 4th of July parade. This was probably 10 years ago. And Jackson, Wyoming, and there's a realtor in the parade, and she's throwing out candy to everybody. And there's an announcer on the microphone. And he says, "Oh, hey, there's Realtor Kathy. That's the most I've ever seen her work." You hear these, you're going through there's thousands of people. This guy's like, I can't believe he just said that. That's the most I've ever seen her work.
That's awesome.
That's the hardest I've ever seen her work, or something like that. Oh my gosh. I was sad for her.
Oh no.
But it's kind of true, maybe. I'm just kidding. I got a couple questions I just realized I wanted to ask you. One of the biggest things that when you're selling a deal to an investor is the cash flow projections. Mm-hmm. Real quick, talk about the formula you're doing to show them that cash flow. What are you accounting for? Because this is one of the things I get frustrated with a lot when I'm seeing people advertise deals, is they're like really underestimating the vacancies and the management and the repairs and all of that stuff. How do you do it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So obviously you got price, you got closing costs, you've got any type of rehab or repairs that you're putting into it. You've got property management fees. You've got any type of seller paid utilities, which shouldn't be much on a single family. You've got your CapEx expenses. These are like your roof, your water heater, things that are lasting 20 years, but eventually are going to need to be replaced, and they're a big expense. Then you've got monthly maintenance. So this is, think like the ceiling fan broke or something like that, and you got to go fix smaller items on a monthly basis. And then you've got vacancy, right? And so that is when the property gets turned over, it's going to be a month or 2 without getting any rent collected. So we have to calculate for that in advance when calculating what the cash flow on a property is.
So like, what are some numbers you use for that? Like 5%, 10%?
So the book will tell you to put 10% for each. So 10% for vacancy, 10% for CapEx, 10% for repairs. You'll never do a deal if those are your numbers. It wipes out. So we adjusted them to 5, and that's what we're with on all of our calculations.
I would, here's one more thing that I see a lot of people forget, and it sounds like a little thing, but it's sometimes not. Do property management companies charge a fee when they find a new tenant?
Yeah, it's the first month's rent.
1 month fee.
Yeah.
We
actually do account for that in our calculator. We assume that the length of a tenant stay is going to be 2.5 years. So we'll take off that 1 month rent as a fee that we're putting in.
Good. Well, that's good because I get annoyed when I see they're taking out a certain percentage because they're saying, well, you're going to have one vacancy. So let's figure 1 month of rent for vacancy, but it's more than 1 month of lost rent. You also have another month that you have to pay to the property management for the fees. But it's like, we'll wrap it with this. I think when you are advertising a deal, and this is applicable to realtors, to investors, property managers, everybody, it's always best practice to under promise and over deliver.
Yep.
Okay. That's going to keep you out of so much more trouble. When you think the rehab might be 30 to 40 grand, then go with the 40 grand number, right? If you think the rents are going to be 700 to 800, when you're figuring your calculations, figure 700 for the rent. If you think whatever, like vacancies, always under promise, over deliver, because then when you're showing this guy the rehab might be the higher number, let's say $40,000, whatever it was, they're going to see that and say, oh, well, you know what? My contract, I can get it done for less than that. This must be a really good deal. I appreciate you. But if it's opposite, if you tell them the rehab is going to be 20, you instantly lose credibility when they look at that and say, this guy's an idiot. Who does he think? Is he an idiot too? Like, so it's so important. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah. So yeah, like if you under promise, like they're going to be excited when they find out that it's less than that, or they're making more cash flow than that, or they make more profit than that, versus the opposite way around, for sure.
All right, good. Oh, one more question.
I give you an example. Like somebody had a deal. They made 30,000 on a rehab, right? But we told them they were going to make 50. And so now they're disappointed that they made 30 grand. It's like, no, this is a $1,000 house. This is a 30% margin on this thing.
Sometimes it's better to say anything.
Right. Yeah.
Let them figure it out on their own.
Yep.
Okay. Real quick, is there a software you like to use to help evaluate these deals, to create the reports and give them those kinds of things? Or is it just
we use Excel spreadsheets, so we keep it our Google Sheets actually, so you don't have to have any software and easy to share and stuff like that.
There is a software I like a lot called Deal Check. Have you ever used it?
I've never heard of it.
I love Deal Check.
Okay.
Because it does all for you. You can set up all the parameters any way you want, and it gives you the PDF reports. It gives you a link that you can share with your logo, your information on it.
Nice.
With the maps, with the comps, the sold comps, and rental comps. It's really amazing. It's just $10 or $12 a month too.
And I bet you have a referral link for us.
I do, but I don't even remember.
Oh.
But it's a really, and even if I did get commissions, it's like a couple. Yeah. But just Google it, Deal Check. Okay. I think dealcheck.io.
Nice.
I had that guy on my podcast before. When I've subject before of finding the buyers first and then finding a property for them as an agent, I've recommended this to people many, many times. Go out Deal Check because it just makes it all look so much more professional, and you get some really good cash flow pro formas, all the financial ratios you could want. A lot of these investors, these buyers, they're very analytical and they like the numbers. And when you can give them numbers and stuff like that, they geek out about it and they get excited and they can see, the depreciation over time, the appreciation over time, the loan pay down over time, the equity buildup. It figures in tax deductions and depreciation and all of that.
Spreadsheet has that. It probably looks a lot better on Deal Check because you got graphs and visuals. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That'd be very valuable for us, for sure.
All right. Well, good. I'm glad I contributed something to this podcast.
Yeah.
Hey, David, thanks so much for your time. Again, people can reach you at Instagram or Facebook.
Right? At Agent David O on any of the platforms. Reach out, send me a message. We'd love to do some deals with you.
At Agent David O, the letter O. Cool. And they can reach out to you to get more information about EXP and working with you on the realtor side of things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe.
We'll see you guys later. Thank you, David. Bye-bye, everybody.
Later.